Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's workshop, which is all about the two keys to gut health, digestion and absorption. So let's get into it. Major topics that we will be discussing here is what exactly is gut health, the signs and symptoms of poor digestion, how it relates to hormonal health, and steps to heal and strengthen our gut lining, and a long-term food plan. So for those that do not know, or for those that I have not met, hello, my name is Olivia. Most of my friends call me Liv, and I am the founder and creator of Live Well Daily, a space that I created to help the female truly live her best every single day, both on and off the plate. My role is to just empower, encourage, and equip women to learn how to fuel their body with the appropriate foods, making each meal better, not complicated, with my 5 Thrive and my Rest and Digest protocol. I then began to teach women how to align their nutrition, their intermittent fasting, their resting, and their fitness all within their personal hormonal state. So if she's premenopausal, perimenopausal, or postmenopausal, each female needs to customize her wellness plan based on where she is at hormonally. So that's a little bit about me and what I do. And if you are here watching this workshop, or tuning in, you are here because you are a member of Live Well Daily. Membership, those that are members have access to all of my fitness routines. They have access to our monthly workshops and digital guides. So I'm glad that you all are here, and let's dive into our topics. So here's what I like to start with. If you are not resting well, you are not digesting well. And if you are not digesting well, you are not absorbing well. I just want you to think about that and let that sit in for a little bit. If you have followed me, if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I say this, or if you're a client of mine, you know that I say this. If you're not resting well, you're not digesting well, period, right? It is essential that we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, AKA our rest and digest. But I want to take that even a step further and say that if we are not digesting well, we're not absorbing well, meaning we're not absorbing the nutrients that our body is needing from the foods that we are eating, leading to women being malnourished, which then leads to hormonal imbalances and just a slippery slope of long-term health issues. So it is important, ladies, that we are resting well, so our bodies enter into that rest and digest, so that we can digest our food and absorb the nutrients. So when we talk about gut health, what exactly does that mean? So on this picture here, you can see that gut health begins, really in the mouth, like when you put that food in and you begin to chew. But I like to say that gut health actually begins in the brain, because when we are stressed, the leakiness begins to take place along the gut lining. If we're eating distracted or eating emotionally, we tend to overeat or just eat mindlessly. So really, gut health begins in the brain, right? Because we need to get in that posture of rest in order to digest the food. So gut health truly begins in the brain. The brain and the gut are in total communication with each other, the brain-gut axis. And so your brain is in constant communication with your gut, and your vagus nerve, which initiates that parasympathetic nervous response, is like a main highway from your brain to your gut, right? So allowing that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, to occur so that you can actually digest and absorb nutrients as soon as you put that food in your mouth. But as you can see, it goes all the way down, right? So it begins in the brain and ends in the anus. So we need to make sure that we are eliminating, so that we are pooping regularly and that it is a healthy form. Women that tell me, oh, I poop, 2 times, 3 times out of the week, but that's normal for me. That's not normal. And that is not healthy. That's not optimal. Because what happens when women tend to, sit in that constipation state, they tend also to have estrogen dominance. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. But when we think about gut health, we think about this 9-meter long tube running from the entry, right? So mouth, and to the exit, the anus. And then the three pillars, the three areas that we're going to be focusing on is gut lining, immunity, our immune system, and the gut microbiome. So the gut lining is basically a tight, strong barrier that protects the whole digestive system. So all of those organs that are pictured from the outside world. And it's a very complex process in how once you take your food into your mouth and has chewing and as it's getting smaller and smaller and being digested properly, it's then taken over to certain areas of the body, and it's done in a very complex way. But women that have leaky gut tend to have gaps in that gut lining. It's not tight like it once was. And so what happens when females have gaps in their gut lining is proteins, for example, we see this very commonly with gluten, they pass through without being carried through in the way that it should be done. And what happens is the body sees it as foreign, and it causes the immune system, so the immunity, to attack that protein and to get it out of the body, right? And so then you will see that individual have rashes on the skin, really severe bloating, brain fog, constipation, diarrhea, gas, all of those things. So those are signs and symptoms that your gut lining is not strong. And so we really need that to be strong to protect, right? To protect our bodies and to make sure that those foods are being digested and brought over properly. And we're going to go to the second piece, immunity. So what does that mean? 70% of our body's immunity takes place in the gut. And so when, like I said with that whole gluten example, when it passes through, that immune system works really hard to take that foreign object, what they view as foreign, what they view as bad, and to get it out. And so those that have, for example, IBS, history of IBS, like I do. I have history of IBS. If you do not know my story, I want to encourage you to go check it out on my website. You can click the About Me, but you can read a little bit about my story and how I was diagnosed with IBS at the age of like 10, I believe. It was on Valentine's Day. I'll never forget it. But I was in such pain, and it was all in my lower right-hand quadrant. And I was at the point where I was vomiting bile, right? I was very, very ill. But when you have IBS, and it's specifically, and it's where it's at in the colon or how it attacks is different for every individual. But for me, it was on my ascending colon, so that lower right-hand quadrant, and I felt so ill. It was like a pulling and a twisting of that lower right-hand quadrant. And when I think about that now, I think that it's because, my body was overexerting itself and my immunity was attacking that specific area to clear out damage that was done or food that I was eating that I wasn't tolerating well. And so your immune system, largely of your immune system, does take place in your gut, and so that the health of your gut also plays into the health of you as an individual, and how you fight off diseases and viruses, bacteria, and things like that. So your immune system is largely related to the health of your gut. And if you want good immunity, which I know we all do, as we are still living in a worldwide pandemic, we do need to make sure that we are taking care of our gut. And then the final piece is the gut microbiome. So the gut microbiome houses trillions, you guys, trillions of living organisms, specifically bacteria. And those living organisms work on our behalf. So for example, when you eat fiber, which is a prebiotic, when you eat fiber, those good gut bacteria eat that fiber. And as a result, they create short chain fatty acids just for you, just for me, right? To help with the livelihood, to help with my health and my overall just livelihood as an individual. And so the short chain fatty acids do things like tighten and heal that gut lining, making it very strong. And they also send, signals to your brain telling you what you crave. So if you're feeding your gut buddies lots of fiber-rich foods, guess what? They crave fiber-rich foods. They crave that warm kale salad. And they also do control a lot of your mood and your cognitive function. So your ability to sit still and think clearly. So when we think about gut health, those are the three areas: gut lining, immune system, and gut microbiome that we want to think about as a whole. So how do we keep our gut lining happy and healthy? So some steps here is we need to manage our stress, because remember, gut health begins in the brain. If you were eating stressed, you were already causing your gut lining to leak, and that can lead to diarrhea. So I don't know if you've ever been through a very stressful situation, like maybe family trauma, a breakup, just where you had a lot of stress, right? And you were anxious and you didn't really have an appetite, but you needed to eat, and then you were constantly struggling with diarrhea. Well, that has to do with the leakiness of your gut, and that leakiness is caused by stress, and stress not being managed, right? So gut health begins in the brain. So that is why it is essential that we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest, and our digest. The second piece that we want to think about is eat fiber-rich foods. When you have a very heavy meal, you cause that gut lining to leak and you cause it to open up. That just naturally happens when you have a very heavy meal. So if you're eating things like fiber-rich foods, you're going to help not only tighten that gut line barrier, but keep it strong and to help eliminate some of the leakiness. And again, when we eat that fiber, it creates short chain fatty acids. So those short chain fatty acids work on our behalf to really boost and improve our livelihood as human beings. We want to limit processed foods, right? Well, for increasing healthy foods like lots and lots of fiber, we want to limit processed foods, because those processed foods feed our bad gut bacteria, and that controls our craving. So if you're constantly eating refined sugar, refined flour, refined oils, processed foods, hey, guess what? You're going to crave that. And you have the power to change your cravings at any time. And it begins by changing your diet. So pull away from those processed foods, and you will, especially sugar, and you will see that gut lining begin to heal and strengthen, or those cravings begin to change, and just your overall health change as well. And we also want to limit antibiotic use. So when we are prescribed antibiotics, it really does need to be for a serious bacterial infection, because what happens when you take an antibiotic, it not only kills the bad gut bacteria, but it also kills all of your good gut bacteria. And so it leaves you to being, your immunity being very poor. So you're more susceptible to getting other viruses or other forms of bacterial infections, because your immunity is low, because your good gut bacteria as well as your bad gut bacteria have been wiped clean. And so also the permeability, the strength of that gut lining is not going to be as strong. So it really does attack a lot of things. So we want to be careful when we're taking antibiotics, or also like ibuprofen, like painkillers like that, as they really do damage to the gut lining and to the health of our gut microbiome, those organisms that live and thrive there. Moving on. Okay, so signs and symptoms of poor digestion. So you're like, okay, Liv, all of this sounds really great. Now, how do I know if I am not digesting my food well? How do I know if I have poor digestion? Well, as you guys can see here, these are the signs and symptoms, but I'm going to read over them for anyone who's just listening or tuning in. Some of the signs and symptoms would be water retention, which is bloating, physical exhaustion. So when you wake up in the morning, you're fatigued, you're tired. Constipation, infertility, depression, anxiety, poor immunity, stiff joints, painful gas, irregular cycles, skin rashes, brain fog, diarrhea, abdominal pain, hormonal acne, and excessive burping. If any of those sound like you, I say if you can circle 3 or more, then it is a sign to us saying, hey, there is some level of poor digestion going on, and there's some level of poor gut health taken place. And so we need to work to strengthen and to improve our gut health. So the connection between hormonal health and digestive health, this is where I really geek out. This is where I really love it, because as you all know, I do work with women and provide education and resources around where they are at hormonally, because I think that that is the foundation. If you're premenopausal, ladies, your body is changing on a biological level every 7 to 10 days, and we need to match that change, right? The early half of your cycle, you're estrogen dominant, your resting cortisol is lower, and you're insulin sensitive. Whereas the later half of your cycle, you're progesterone dominant, your body temperature is elevated, your resting cortisol is elevated, and you are now insulin resistant. So how you eat, how you move, and how you intermittent fast really does play a huge part of how you are going to feel and the results that you're going to get over that period of time. And then when you go over to perimenopausal women, when you turn 40, nothing is the same, right? Why is that? Well, estrogen then becomes a little chaotic, goes from up and down, and progesterone and testosterone start to drop, right? So you'll see those levels begin to drop in half. So then we need to really support the body and figure out what are the appropriate steps for her as far as fitness, intermittent fasting, and really optimize her nutrition to create that flexible metabolic rate. And then once you get to postmenopausal, all of those hormones have just basically flatlined. And that's not a bad thing, because now your body, hopefully if we've been working together, is ready and prepared for this phase of life. And you always have options to hormonal replacement therapy if it's needed for you. But I first want to recommend, let's just start with getting the basics, which is understanding how to eat, move, rest, and fast based on where you're at hormonally. And if you're postmenopausal, we then focus on longevity. So as you can see, I'm passionate about hormonal health. Well, gut health is a huge factor in that. And when I work with women, I first begin targeting gut health, because the strength of your gut, the health of that microbiome, and your immunity really sets the trajectory of how we're going to work together the entire time. And so let's dive in a little bit about the connection between the hormone health and the digestive health, like how they both play together. So beginning here, you'll see the gut microbiome. Like I said, the gut microbiome houses trillions of living organisms, specifically bacteria, but it also houses yeast and some things like that. So the living bacteria, you have good gut bacteria and you have bad gut bacteria. We have both. And living in the modern world that we live in, we definitely have both. But when you're working with me, I want that good gut bacteria to outweigh that bad gut bacteria. So what happens when that bad gut bacteria outweighs the good gut bacteria? Well, the bad gut bacteria can metabolize and recycle hormones in your body. Or no, let me rewind what I just said. Gut bacteria, so good gut bacteria, can metabolize and recycle hormones in our body. Estrogen circulates the body via the bloodstream, and when it enters the liver, it is then inactivated, where it is then sent to the intestines to be eliminated in our stool. Well, when we have bad gut bacteria in relation to our good gut bacteria, it creates a certain enzyme called beta glucuronidase. And beta glucuronidase in the gut reactivates estrogen and releases it back into the bloodstream. So we then have excess estrogen floating around the body, which then leads to women having estrogen dominance. And it leads to all of these hormonal imbalances, and it's just a slippery slope. So what do we do? Well, here are the steps. We take small steps to begin to heal our gut. And we want to begin by doing just a very basic elimination diet to heal and strengthen that gut lining, to replenish the gut microbiome with good bacteria, to increase our immunity by getting lots of physical rest, and to activate that parasympathetic nervous system. So as you can see, we've got 3 steps here, but I'll say them out loud. Our 3 steps are to start the Live Well Daily Hormone Detox. That detoxification, the first 2 weeks, it's all about healing and strengthening that gut-lining barrier and replenishing that gut microbiome and making sure that you're getting lots and lots of physical rest. So you're going to pull away from things like caffeine, sugar, you're going to pull away from red meat, you're going to pull away from processed foods, gluten, legumes, things that would cause the gut to overwork itself or may just cause some gas and some bloating to occur. So the Live Well Daily Hormone Detox this is how I begin almost all of my clients that they have gut imbalances and hormone imbalances. But this detox is also made available on my website. Just click the program tab and you will find it there. But it does guide you through that 21-day liver detoxification process. Remember when we said the liver, how it inactivates that estrogen and takes it to the intestines? Well, as women, we tend to carry a very heavy toxic load, just toxins that we come in contact with just living in the modern world, like the air pollutions, but also in the foods in the form of pesticides, herbicides, and the products that we place on our skins that are filled with toxin chemicals. But also just in the form of like medications, antibiotic use, pain medications like ibuprofen, Tylenol, and things like that. So reducing that toxic load is essential to our health. This 21-day hormone detox, which is a liver detox, takes us through those 3 phases of basically neutralizing those toxins, also neutralizing that excess estrogen, and then taking it from the liver to the intestines to be eliminated in our stool. So the liver detox guides you through, and I would also recommend at that point to work with me one-on-one, because again, this all needs to be individualized for that person. But a basic elimination diet is key, and beginning a liver detox is appropriate. And then we want to think about activating our rest and digest, so that parasympathetic nervous system. And this is very simple. You want to pause before you eat. And I know it may sound silly, but God is the perfect MD, and he goes before us in all things. He created prayer not only to bind us to him spiritually, but he knew that we would need it physically for our bodies. And so before you take that first bite, I want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and just say thank you. Thank you, Jesus, for this food. Thank you for the hands that prepared it. Thank you for the ability to sit down and eat. God, I'm so grateful. And you know what happens when you're grateful? A grateful spirit is not an anxious spirit. You cannot be anxious if you are giving thanks to something, and specifically to someone who provides you with all the things to be grateful for. But also scientifically, what's going on, remember that vagus nerve that we talked about, that main highway from the brain to the gut? Well, that initiates that parasympathetic nervous system. And so as that heart rate slows down, that belly expands, and the muscle fibers along your digestive tract are then able to absorb and digest the food that you are about to put into your mouth. So it really does cut back the food, mindless eating, stress eating, and emotional eating. And then last but not least, we do want to make sure that we are getting deep physical rest. So what do I mean by that? 8 to 10 hours of sleep. I really recommend that my clients turn their phones off or get away from all screen time in 1 to 2 hours before bedtime to ensure that you are getting deep physical rest when there are hormonal imbalances and gut health issues. Getting lots of rest is key. I recommend women just take long walks, get extra sleep, and really listen to their body, because if you're pushing your body exponentially hard during that time, you're only driving up that cortisol. And so we really need to pay attention to that cortisol and bring it down during this time. So physical rest is key. Long-term plan. Okay, so food restrictions are not healthy long-term, because what happens when you completely eliminate a food product from your diet for a certain period of time? I'd say 6 months or more. You stop creating those enzymes to break down that food product. So again, like I said, we live in a modern world. So what are the chances that you're going to go your entire life without having a piece of cake or some ice cream or that piece of pizza? I'd say not at all, right? And who wants to live in a world where you don't have birthday cake or a piece of pizza every now and then? So I don't believe it's good to make strict restrictions on food. I don't believe it's healthy. I think we should be mindful, and we should intuitively eat and follow our cravings if we are following the Live Well Daily method. And we should allow ourselves to celebrate and have a piece of pizza every now and then, but always think about making that meal better, not complicated, by having a big salad with that piece of pizza. So here, this says here, a long-term food plan, because food restrictions are not healthy. And it just kind of goes into the options and discussing, if you maintain a very restricted diet over the course of 4 months or more, you are robbing your body of diverse fiber-rich options. clean proteins, and more. Over the course of time, your body will stop producing enzymes to break down those food products, and worse, could leave your body malnourished because you are lacking certain amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. So this is important. I know those who say, oh, I don't eat gluten because it's bad. I mean, if you have true disease that, if you have true disease like celiac disease, then no, you do not need to eat gluten. But if you're pulling away from it just because of fat or just because you think it makes you fat, then I don't think that that's smart. And also too, when you are choosing a very strict diet like vegan or paleo or whatever it may be, I think that, again, you want to make sure that you're getting all of your nutrients. And I know it's pretty hard to get that even as a vegan. So if you're doing that for religious purposes, I say that's completely up to you. But if you're doing it just for the sake of being healthy, I think we should talk about it and discuss more options. So this is what it looks like to begin our Live Well Daily journey. We've got the 5 Thrive. Let's recap that again. Number 1, clean protein. Number 2, complex carb. Number 3, healthy fat. Number 4, dietary fiber. And number 5, vibrant greens. If we have all 5 of those in our meals, our body begins to thrive from the inside out, meaning we're actually balancing our blood sugar. We're turning off that hunger hormone, ghrelin, and turning on the satiety hormone, leptin. We're optimizing our hormones, our female sex hormones, because we're taking care of our gut, and we're creating that flexible metabolic rate because we're then able to fast 4 to 6 hours between each meal without thinking about food. The second piece is activating that parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest, like we talked about before each meal. Or if you're like me, doing it before each meal and then also getting outside and going for a 30-minute walk every day, listening to an inspirational podcast or worship music. Again, turning your focus back on the Creator, back on the one who gives us all the things to be grateful for, breathing, stepping, and just renewing our minds. And then number 3, make fitness fun. So if you're a Live Well Daily member, you know that I go live and I teach women how to align their movement within their cycle. And so you can begin sculpting with me based on your cortisol fluctuations. Because like I said, premenopausal and perimenopausal women, our cortisol is changing in response to our hormones changing. And so if you're in the early half of your cycle, your resting cortisol is lower. So we want to push the body harder. And in the later half of your cycle, your resting cortisol is elevated. And we need to do more focused sets there and balanced focus sets. So tune in to Live Well Daily Fit. I go live on my private Instagram page and do some workouts with me. Fourth piece, last but not least, we want to begin fasting. I have heard different people say that, oh, women don't need to fast, and I don't believe that that is true. I think women need to be savvy about their intermittent fasting and, again, align their intermittent fasting schedule to their personal hormonal state. So whether you're pre, peri, or postmenopausal, I get you on an intermittent fasting plan and schedule that will work for you. I will teach you about the benefits of fasting, the science behind it, and how to calm down and off intermittent fasting during the holidays or vacation times. And so at the end of the day, we just really want to focus on making each meal better, not complicated. So as you go out into the world and you have your 5 Thrive bowl or cup or plate, I want you to tag better, not complicated, hashtag better, not complicated, hashtag Live Well Daily, hashtag 5 Thrive. Get that message out there, you guys, because I am not about making things complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. Our mealtime should be quite simple and celebratory. And then get a customized plan. How? You do that by becoming a client today. We work together one-on-one and we customize a plan specific for you to help heal your gut and balance your hormones. Don't forget, follow me on Live Well Daily. That's at Live Well Daily, LIVWELLDAILY, Live Well Daily. I hope you all enjoyed this workshop, and don't forget to email me or DM me if you have any questions.